you waited all this time for this opportunity to go out there as the place kicker and to do it under such circumstances, including the game winner. Just what was all that like for you?
Oh, it was pretty cool. I mean, you kind of like prepare yourself in practice and stuff for game winner type situations, but there's nothing really like looking back on it now, like until you're in that situation, you don't really know how you're going to handle it. But yeah, I mean, it's really cool, like helping the team get a win. So it was big for us.
I know you and Bijan are close. What did you guys talk about in the later parts of the week? Like, did you get any advice or any? I don't know if you guys talked much in the days leading up. I guess you found out on Thursday, so there would have been a couple days for you to know.
Right. Yeah. Bijan and I are always talking. He's one of my good buddies on the team. Like obviously super, super unfortunate his situation. Just not being able to play as a team captain. We all look up to him and he's one of our leaders. So he's always right there, like helping me out. Even Evan too, when me and him were both battling, just out there, he's watching every kick and helping us chart them, helping us time them. Like he's out there doing the most that he can, which is huge for our confidence because he's instilling that in me and Evan because he's been in those situations before. So he's a huge help.
And one more for me, real quick. I'm curious. How did you start to prepare? What was your mindset once Bijan got hurt and you guys knew he was going to miss some time? How did your kind of mental approach adjust knowing that was open at that point?
So Evan and I were battling, and then Evan obviously got the nod week 1, and I was holding for Evan. So I kind of didn't even think about, like, I would be kicking in practice and we would do it at the end of the, like, field goal period and stuff. But it really wasn't until the bye week when there became like an open competition again, I would say. And yeah, I mean, we knew one of us had to step up in his absence. So kind of just that's what our mindset was on. We're like obviously he's trying to get back as quick as possible. So until then, just keep doing what we're doing.
Cool. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Let's go to Bill Wagner.
Hey, Daniel. So I'm curious, when we talked to Coach Niemot about the decision, and I know Coach Ukaitis is the one who made the decision, and Coach Niemot said it was kind of a gut feeling, but I mean, do you feel, if you look back upon it, why do you think you won the competition? Did you have a really, really good week kicking, or did you do something super special, like nail a 50-yarder in practice? Or what do you think tilted the scales in your favor as far as getting the nod over Evan?
That's actually a pretty good question. I'm not entirely sure. I feel like me and Evan were pretty even. I felt good after, because he did tell us after practice on Thursday, like he would give us a decision within like the hour or so. And I felt pretty good. Like it could be me. Obviously, being the holder, someone has to hold for me when I'm kicking. So that was a huge thing that we needed to think about as a team. Just like who's been in the situations, like pressure wise and stuff. And obviously Kellen was able to step up, which was huge. But I also think partially that decision was based off just like game experience too. Like I've played in pressure situations before. So obviously not field goal kicking, which is a little different, but I feel like the gut feeling maybe had a little bit to do with that. So.
Another thing I was curious about is the holding situation, which is interesting that you brought that up after the game, because that's the whole operation was different on a lot of levels. So when in practice, you're the holder for Evan and Bijan, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
Obviously you can't hold for yourself. So has Kellen always been your holder or no?
So in the spring, Kellen was holding for me. And then it wasn't until like the last couple of days of spring, they started getting Riley in to hold as well. And then through fall camp, it was a little bit of a mixture. We had Riley holding some and then Kellen holding some. But with the home game, we had a lot more specialist dressing for the home games. So we kind of made like the decision, like, all right, like Kellen will hold. And then during the bye week, we started getting Riley going again. But but then Kellen figured out that he was going to travel. So it was actually like probably that Thursday was the first day that Kellen held for me again. And obviously I feel comfortable with him. We did it all spring. So I had confidence in him that he would do well. So, and it worked out.
Interesting. And then last but not least for me, what's it like at the Naval Academy? You were an anonymous backup kicker last week. Now you getting pats on the back, or suddenly people recognize midshipman Daniel Davies?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. My professors they're kind of like surprised. They're like, "Whoa, I didn't even know you were kicking." Blah 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 blah. And like, yeah, but no, it's definitely cool getting recognized and stuff. But I mean, I'm just trying to do the best I can for the team, get us a win.
Let's go to Phil Bergman.
Daniel, we've talked to Riley in the past just about the difference in techniques at the college level between punting and kicking, kind of switching over from being a punter to a kicker. How was that an adjustment from a techniques point of view?
So it's actually funny you say that. I honestly viewed myself more of a kicker even coming into school. So it was more of an adjustment to punt in the first place. And then now coming back to it, it's more like I'd say my natural swing pattern, just being a soccer player and stuff like all my life. Kicking's definitely more natural to me. So
just Air Force game in general, just playing Air Force being such a historic rivalry, just what's this moment going to be like for you to be part of this game?
Yeah, no, it's huge. Obviously on the road at their place in the altitude, it's gonna be a tough test. They're a great team. I'm excited. I think we're all pretty excited. We're all juiced up. Last week gave us a lot of confidence as a team. The belief and stuff, it finally kind of came out like we can win games. And I think a lot of the younger guys who are playing now realize that and realize what it takes to win. So I think we'll be ready to go.
And from a kicking perspective, kicking in altitude, that ball's going to sail, supposedly. Are you excited to get to kick in altitude? How much of a practice adjustment will that be once you're out there?
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. Maybe coach will let me go from deep. I'm just kidding. But no, it definitely does have an effect. We were talking just in terms of kickoffs and stuff, like kicking out of the back most of the time. Every time we play up there, there's not many returns on the kickoff game. So it definitely makes a difference, but hopefully it's an advantage.
Thank you.
Scott Wyckoff.
And Daniel, what's your routine on the sidelines? How often do you kick to stay warm, and how much of the game do you actually watch?
So most of the time, it kind of depends. In overtime the other night, I was probably hitting one or two at the beginning of every new series in overtime, and then until we kind of get into my range, like past the 50, and then we start getting closer. That's probably when I'll start heading over to the net and start warming up. But yeah, normally I'm just sitting on the bench with the other specialists, like just kind of waiting. Usually punts, like the guy, because Byron's snapping for punt too, so he'll be doing his own thing, like getting ready for punt, and then whenever we kind of get into range, he'll move over to some field goal snaps. So
when you know you're in the lineup, do you talk with Coach Akitis before game time to get a sense of what your range is for that game at that location?
Yeah, definitely. I feel like just there's a lot of things to factor in. Wind is huge. Just kind of how I'm hitting it that day. The other night we had like 50 going one way, 45 going the other way, just because the breeze was going towards that one way. But honestly, you don't really think about it kind of going in, like for that 43 yarder, like I knew it was in my range. I didn't even really think about like, oh, I might not be able to get it there. Just kind of hit the ball. So.
And what's it with kickers in golf? I mean, you guys can rule the roost in golf. What is it about you guys being able to swing those sticks?
It's very similar. So my dad says it all the time. Kicking's a lot like golf. It's a lot of technique. You don't have to necessarily be the biggest guy to hit it the farthest. A lot of mechanics. So it's smooth swinging. Trying to get good contact on the ball. It's a lot like golf.
Sean Grogan, press box.
Hey, Daniel. We've talked a lot about so far kind of your preparation in the past week when you got the nod, but can you kind of talk about how you've stayed ready the past 2 or 3 years mentally? Obviously, you had your holding duties, and that's very important, but how do you stay mentally ready in case this week ever did come?
Yeah, I mean, 2 years ago I was punting. Last year I was mainly holding. Yeah, it's kind of just you never really expect it to happen, but then it happens, and you just have to be ready for it. I don't really know. I that's a tough question to answer. I'm not. I guess you kind of just go through the game, like pregame routines, and throughout week you're still like trying to focus on your craft. Like I'm kicking field goals every day, even though I'm not kicking them on Saturdays. But now, obviously, I am. So, yeah, just
And how different was that pregame feeling this week compared to when you're going into the game knowing you'll be the holder, you're the place kicker this week?
yeah. I mean, it was so normally I'm like taking holding snaps and stuff, and now I'm like shifting all that to taking more field goals during warm up. But no, I felt really good in warm up. I felt like I was hitting it pretty well. Coach Yo even was like Daniel, don't kick as much as you need to, like save your leg, blah blah blah. But no, I felt good. It's definitely a different routine though.
Yeah. And lastly, can you kind of rank the nerves or maybe the butterflies? What's worse, the first collegiate kick that you kicked earlier in the game or the pressure pack kick in overtime?
I'd probably say the first one, just because the op itself had never been out there, all three of us. So there's definitely a little nerves about the whole situation. Obviously, they did a great job, and so that gave me a lot of confidence. But yeah, definitely the first one.
Thank you.
We'll go back around. Kareem.
I'm just got one more, Sean. Just stole mine. I was going to ask a little bit about nerves, but now that you've gotten through a week, how do you? Does it feel just normal and like, and you know, you've got your kind of routine of what this week will go through? Has the newness of it, I guess, worn off a little bit at this point and feel good to have one game under your belt?
Yeah, definitely huge to get that first game out of the way. It built a lot of confidence for me personally, and I think for the coaches in me. But yeah, just kind of like Coach said the other night after the game, you know, we'll celebrate that one tonight. It's great that we won, but it's on to the Air Force. Like we gotta focus in now.
Perfect, quick and easy for me. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Wags.
So, you know, I have a little situation with Bijan being such a great kicker and basically a 4-year starter. But Coach Niamat said that if Bijan is 100% ready to go, he's going to be the kicker. Is that, I mean, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like you should have a chance to compete and, you know, see if maybe you're a better kicker than Bijan when that time comes around?
I think I don't know. I'm filling in a role for sure right now, but Bijan's a captain of our team. He's a leader for us. You know, he's proven time and time again that he's a reliable kicker, and I'm happy being his holder. I love that spot just as much. But until that time comes, I'm going to do everything I can for the team. So.
One last for me, when you're back home on Sunday celebrating a big victory over Air Force, will you be watching the Cowboys Commanders game with your roommate John Marshall and seeing the Cowboys suffer their first loss?
Cowboys are
Absolutely.
2-1, Wags. Cowboys are 2-1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. The Commanders are kind of struggling right now, so maybe Cooper Rush is the real deal.
Please.
Cowboys by 2 touchdowns, Wags.
I agree, Scott.
Phil Bergman.
Daniel, do you have a preferred side of the hash to kick from?
Not really, actually. Maybe left, if anything. I don't know. I've never really even thought about that.
That's surprising because they moved the ball to the right hash for the kick last week. They
Yeah,
purposely went to the right.
I really don't know.
And then last from me, a lot of people on social media tend to talk with college kickers about how simple it is to kick. You know better than anyone how difficult this position is. Could you just go into a little detail about all the work that goes into analyzing a kick?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very small portion in terms of like snaps and just like overall time of the game, but it holds great importance. So I think like that just proves in itself like how detailed you have to be every time you're out there, and like it's a very calculated position. It's a lot of mental. It's a lot. Yeah, it's very mental. But yeah.
Thank you.
Scott Wyckoff.
What does it mean for this team to bring the Commander-in-Chief's trophy back to Annapolis?
Oh, it would be everything for us. The last time we had it was my freshman year, which not a lot of us. Bijan obviously was a huge contributor to that team, but he's probably the only one who's still on the team that contributed in such a great way. So not a lot of us have experienced that. The Commander-in-Chief, and I think that's it would be a huge thing for us to bring it back.
Thanks a lot. Good luck. Have a good trip.
Thank you.
Sean Grogan.
So we've talked about all that you've done in terms of the place kicking, the holding, the punting. How much pride do you take in the versatility that whatever the special teams has needed from you in your career, you've been someone who they've been able to step up and deliver that?
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I kind of pride myself on is I'm in some ways someone that can like be like I don't know, not a backup, but like just kind of like a swing man. You know, if someone needs a punter, like I'll go punt or kick off, whatever it may be. I remember in the spring we had like our exit interviews, just going into the summertime and stuff. And I was telling Coach Niamat, that I just felt comfortable in all three. I've done all three in practice and stuff. Obviously until now, kick field goals, but yeah, I thought that was a huge thing that I bring to the table. Just being able to do all three. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for Daniel? Any favorite kickers currently in the NFL or former in the NFL that maybe you've emulated?
Definitely not emulated, but I'm a huge Justin Tucker fan, huge Texas Longhorns fan. So and obviously the Baltimore Ravens. So
Let's start with the run defense. I mean, that's the topic. It's been spectacular. I mean, Navy's never had a run defense ranked 5th nationally that I know of. To your mind, what is the reason behind this outstanding run defense?
Well, we're only 3 games in. Hopefully it stays that way. But I think our defensive line, our front 7 really is playing at a high level. I think we fit things really well. We've been able to be disruptive in the early downs, some of the movement, the stunts that we're running. That's the first thing we talk about around here. To play good defense, you have to stop the run. You have to try to keep people off track, get people behind the sticks, so you get them in, 2nd, 3rd down situations that you want to get them into. And we've been pretty efficient doing that. Obviously, we got to execute better on 3rd down. When we do that, we're pretty good.
So, how much of this is just playing experience and guys understanding? You talk about the 3-dimensional stuff, but I mean, I remember 2 years ago at East Carolina, you got beat for a long run because the guy didn't fill his gap. That's not happening this season for the most part.
Yeah, I think we've got some experience up front now. Got some good players, and I think Coach Volker does a phenomenal job with the linebackers and how we fit things. And we're young at linebacker, but those guys are doing a really, really nice job. But like I said, we've been able to make the ball go east and west. I think the exception against East Carolina was a couple of draw plays. Those are really on the run plays that hit. But everything else we've been able to fit up pretty well. So I'm really pleased with the run defense so far. Hopefully we can keep that going.
And then do you feel there's any unsung heroes or maybe key players? Like when you look at why the run defense is doing well, is there anybody that you could single out, 2 or 3 players who really have been absolutely critical?
Yeah, I'd say all 3 of those, the interior guys have been really good. Biscuit was our player of the game last week. He wasn't the most productive guy, but he got a lot of assists. That's a credit for dominating your job so that somebody else can make a play. But he's been outstanding in there. And then Clay Cromwell, the move to 3 technique with him has really paid off. He's a big, sturdy, physical dude in there. And then I think Busick, obviously, he's playing at a really high level right now, and he's really progressed, from where he was a year ago. I think all 3 of those guys, the improvement, what Coach Hall has been able to do with those guys, and the way they're playing, just with the physicality and the toughness and the detail, they're all doing their job. You don't see a lot of these guys peeking in the wrong gap. The gap integrity has been really, really good. And that's been a little bit of an issue in the past. And that's something we've been a lot better at this year, something that we preached. And Coach Hall has done a great job with them. And Coach Volker, like I said earlier, has done a great job with those linebackers and how we fit things.
What part of the defense are you most proud of right now? Is that run defense, or is there other parts that maybe we're not talking about as much that you're still pretty proud of that you guys are doing?
No, I think the front 7, like I said earlier, is playing well. Still got a lot of room for improvement. I think we can play much better, but I've been pleased with them so far. And I think just the overall effort piece of things. Our kids play extremely hard, and they've been really, really physical. And then you go play East Carolina, and they pride themselves on being a physical, tough football team that runs the ball. And I thought Saturday that we exceeded, their toughness, and I thought we played harder than they did. So that's what I'm most pleased with to this point so far. Obviously, the thing that we've got to improve is executing our coverages in the back end, keeping things in front of us. So obviously, if you can play good run defense, and you can keep things in front of you and make people earn what they get, control the pass, it's going to be hard for people to drive the field. And when we do that, we're pretty good. You look at all the scoring drives we've given up. I think there's been an X play on all those drives. And so it just goes back to the thing we talk about all the time. You just can't give up explosive plays. And when we don't do that, we're pretty good.
Looking at the Air Force, what makes their version of their offense unique or a little bit different than some of the other options out there?
Yeah, I think, of all the option teams I've gone against, they're the most creative, from the type of plays they run to the formations that they give you. They don't run a ton of different plays, but they run them out of a lot of different sets and a lot of different looks. They do a good job with motions, eye candy to distract you. I just think they're really good at what they do. Those 4 or 5 plays that they run the most, they run them really, really well, and they do them a lot of different ways. And so I've always thought that Air Force does a phenomenal job on offense. Their players are extremely well coached, and what they do schematically is really challenging.
And just one last one for me, getting that win was important regardless, but it's a little bit more important to kind of get it on the road right before another tough road game that, so much weighs on.
Yeah, I think just to get a win in general was really important, and I'd say that, that was the best team we've played so far. And so, you 0-2, your backs are against the wall a little bit. A lot of negative outside things going on, and so for our kids to stay focused and keep coming to work and then go on the road in a hostile environment and beat a really good East Carolina football team, it was awesome for our kids. We needed it. We all needed that. And I think it's a confidence booster. I think our players see that we can be pretty good when we put it all together. And so really pleased with that. I think we've played well on the road. The last 6 or 7 times we've gone on the road. I think, we were focused. They were dialed in. But yeah, it was good to get one on the road for sure, Kareem, and gives you a little confidence going up there to Colorado.
Perfect. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Going back to Wags' question, I think I misspoke. I think I said 1999. I meant to say 2019. 2019, we finished 10th in rushing defense. Scott Wyckoff.
Hey, Coach, why is Tyler Fletcher succeeding at such a young age in this defense?
Well, he's a really good football player. He got all the physical tools that you want in that position. He's tall, long, really athletic, and he's got some instinctual things that you can't coach that certain guys have. Especially linebackers that make him a good player. And I think he played really well this past week, and I think he played 25 snaps or so, but played extremely hard, made a lot of plays, had the big interception for us. And I think it's all confidence in him. I think the first 2 games of the year, he was a little wide-eyed, and and wasn't super locked in to reading his keys and things like that. I think, we've talked to him about it, and he made that change, and you could tell, last Saturday that he was way more dialed in to just. Sometimes you see too much, you don't see anything. If you see a little bit in football terms, as Nick Saban says, then you can see a lot. But burning a hole in his key, as Coach Vogel tells those guys all the time, and it allows those guys to play fast. And I thought he did that on Saturday.
Do you see a difference in practice this week, being at a service academy and the guys taking up another notch, knowing the importance of the Commander-in-Chief's trophy?
Yeah, no, I think our guys always practice really hard. Obviously, these games they're a little different. I don't care what you say. We know they're a really good football team, so we're on edge. We're you play an option team, and you have to be assignment sound, right? And there can't be any miscommunications. Everybody's got to be on the same page, and so you got to be a little extra focused and dialed in when you're playing in these kind of games, because the margin for error is really, really small. Most likely you're not going to play a ton of snaps, and so you got to be on point on all of them. Each play is a life of its own. But yeah, I think I'd like to say we practice the same way all the time, Scott, but as well as I do, these games they mean a lot. And our kids are hungry for a win now. We haven't won in a decade out there, and we're well aware of that. And but we're fired up and excited for the challenge. And these guys have gotten after us the last 2 years, and so we're going out there with a little something to prove.
Do you notice while the game's going on live any impact of the altitude? And did you play in altitude when you were in school and notice it?
No, I not that I recollect, or not that I remember it being an issue. I think it may be a little bit. I think initially when you get there, but we played there in 20, and I don't remember it being a huge issue. I think everybody kind of handles that a little differently. There's times I've been in the mountains where I get a little altitude sickness, and times where I felt perfectly fine. So, I think our guys will be fine. We don't give it too much attention, to be honest. It's got not a lot we can do about it. Just got to go out there and play. But we got to be aware of that. And the good thing about us defensively this year is we've got some depth, and we need to roll those guys probably early a little bit more than we might at another place. So we just got to be smart and listen to those guys, and if they need a blow, we got to be able to get them out of there.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Bill Bergman.
Coach, what's been the message to the team this week in practice?
It's kind of always the same message. I don't think it's anything unique. It's a business trip. I think everybody remembers the last 2 years, and they've gotten after us pretty good, and so we know it's going to be a huge challenge, and we've got to be ultra dialed in, and they're big games, and so your emotions can get the best of you in these kind of games sometimes. So we got to control our emotions, and Coach Neiman always talks about the breathe, focus, explode. One play at a time. Like I said earlier, each play is life of its own, and you got to focus, you got to get dialed in, and then you got to explode on that rep, and you got to get lined up and do it again and again.
BD Williams has been starting at corner. What have you seen out of him through these first 3 games?
Yeah, he's done some good things, Phil, and then he's made some mistakes. And BD's essentially a redshirt freshman anywhere else, and unfortunately, sometimes those young guys learn as they play the game, not always just in practice. And there's been some things that came up. And BD's a really, really smart player. He's made some mistakes that he'll never make again. Unfortunately, sometimes you got to learn like that with young players. And you saw that with Ray Lane last year. How much he's improved. But Embiid is super smart, super conscientious. It's important to him. He works his tail off, and the mistakes that he made, I don't think he'll make them again.
And lastly, you're not a grad of a service academy, but getting to coach in these Commander-in-Chief's trophy games, emotionally, what's this like to be part of such a historic rivalry?
Well, it's a privilege to be a part of it. You grow up watching it. You admire the guys on both sides. There's a mutual respect, obviously. I think these games are the purest form of football that we have, in my opinion. Especially in this day and age when there's NIL, there's the transfer portal, and all the things that go on. I think it's the best version of the purity of the sport. Played by guys that are going to serve their country and guys that are cut from a little different cloth. So it's just I just love being a part of it. It's a privilege, it's an honor, and these games while they're very stressful to prepare for and to coach in, they're a lot of fun too. There's nothing quite like it.
Thank you.
Let's go back to Wags.
So we talked about the rushing defense ranking high. You're going to get arguably the biggest challenge of the season on Saturday. This team is just unbelievable on the ground. 480 yards a game.
Yeah.
That's like on historic levels there.
Yeah.
What do you see, and how do you handle that?
Well, I think we got a good plan. I thought we had a good plan against these guys last year. We got a little worn down toward the end of that game, but like I said earlier, we've got to be more physical than them up front. We've got to execute the call. We got to have our eyes in the right place. We have 11 guys doing their job, and that's always the case when we play an option team. But I think the physicality and the effort piece, I think we got to win that, and then we've got to make fewer mistakes than they do. And we say it all the time: the team that plays the hardest makes fewest mistakes is going to win the game. And this game always comes down to that. And we got to get a takeaway or two in this game too. If you win the turnover margin in this game, historically, you got a great chance to win. So obviously we can't turn it over on offense, and we got to get the ball out on defense. And the way you do that is by running the football, playing extremely hard. And when you have an opportunity to strip that thing out, knock it out, you do it.
Wanted to have you address some personnel. First of all, if you could talk about the fullback Roberts, the guy gained like 1,350 yards last season. He's legit, been around a while. Also, they have two quarterbacks. Daniels is more the runner, executing the option, but they'll bring this Britton guy in to throw, I think. And they have hit some long passes. And then Cormier, the receiver, is very, very talented and has hurt Navy in the past. And then lastly, they've got a halfback, young guy that's really good change of direction. He's a guy that's dangerous.
Yeah, everything for them starts with the B-back. He's going to get a lot of touches, and if they can get him cranked up, it's usually a pretty good day. It starts to open things up on the perimeter for him. So that's always a challenge when you play the academies. It's the same can be said for Army. When you can control the B-back and fit things correctly on the perimeter, then typically it's going to be a pretty good day. If you don't, all right, it could be a long day. But the quarterback's a really good player. He's been in the system for a long time. He's experienced. He can throw it. He can run it. Gets him in the right plays. He executes at a high level. So it all starts with those two guys, and then they've got some really athletic A-backs as well. I think they've had a couple of guys that haven't played the last 2 weeks that have been hurt. I don't know if those guys will be back or not, but they're loaded at A-back, and you look out at wide-out, and they've got the speed to knock the top off the coverage. He's a big physical receiver, number 7, really good player, and the tight end. Could play probably anywhere in the country in a traditional 11 personnel system. So they're good all over. And up front, the O-line is physical, they're athletic. And so they're just a real well-rounded football team from top to bottom. And they're good. We're going to have to play really, really well. Excited about the challenge.
How important are the takeaways, the turnovers? Because it seems like the defense, especially like in the first couple games, can play hard, can make the plays, but just if some of those timely turnovers like you had at East Carolina aren't there, it makes it difficult.
Yeah, we won the turnover margin at East Carolina, and then that's probably why we won that game. And we talk about that a lot around here. And we were in the negative category the first 2 games, and we've been able to get the ball out a decent amount on defense. The ball hadn't bounced to us every time. Sometimes you get those, Scott. Sometimes you don't. But what I was encouraged by on Saturday was it's the most attempts at a strip of a ball carrier that I've seen in any game since I've been here. The guys are thinking about it. They're trying to strip it out. They're knocking at it, knocking on the ball. And so every 5 or 6 times you see an attempt like that, you're probably going to get one of them out. And so we talk about that a lot. And we want to see it more, obviously. But I think the effort piece and running the football and being physical in itself creates takeaways. But on top of that, when you're trying to get the ball out, and you're making attempts to strip it, get the ball out of the running back's hands, and you're going to get some of those.
Well, you had mentioned about Embiid earlier, the play in which he dove for the ball, trying to deflect or intercept, and then was that his fault, or was he supposed to have someone to help him out back there?
No, we were zero blitz. So when we zero, it's a man with no help, and just in that situation, 3rd and 2, and that point in the game, you just got to keep it in front of you. You got to break on the receiver's upfield shoulder, and he thought he had a shot at it. The quarterback threw it to the outside shoulder. If the quarterback throws on target, he might pick that thing off, but that's not a chance unless you know for sure. You can't come in front of the receiver right there. And so, like I said earlier, that's a lesson learned by him in that situation. You just got to tackle the hitch, right, and live to play another down in that situation right there. So, again, he's learning. If he picks that thing off, and it's a great call by me, and he's a hero. We're up 24-10 at that point, but that's a risk in that situation that you can't take.
So I'd ask about Britton. I mean, how are they using him? Are they just giving him a few series, or I'm sure they're not bringing him in just to throw. That would be too obvious.
Yeah, they're not an option team where they have a running quarterback and a throwing quarterback. I mean, their starter he's really good, and he can throw the laces off of it. So I think maybe to give him a blow, maybe just to get him reps, make sure he's ready. Maybe when they've had some lopsided victories, and he's gotten a lot of reps when that's happened. So I think that's part of it, but he's a really good, capable quarterback. And there's not a significant drop off when he comes in the game. It's for them is really good.
And lastly, for me, and I was just going to check participation, but I don't know that I saw Harbor out there at all on Saturday night. Is he injured?
Yeah, so he didn't travel, obviously didn't play, but he's back this week. Should be good to go.